you do a good job on the panel. There are presents. So I hope everyone appreciates the richness of our panel. As I was sitting here listening to each of them speak, we've had perspectives from, academic university research. We've had perspectives from industry, large industry, and then also government perspectives. And we've covered everything from, a range of, Rickey's touched on, about 20 or 30 different agricultural products, crops with Dow, 4 or 5 significant ones, and then fish, a range. And it's really interesting. I almost don't know where to begin, but what I do know is I'm going to get a great answer at the end when I challenge the panel to answer, to come up with, the best fundable project for the LSAR competition that Gabe mentioned. So I'm seeding you with that now, so that will be a question that I'm going to pose to you. But I think one of the really interesting things that I got from this is, and Steve sort of brought it up, about the availability of genomics and how that can really transform what you can do. So Steve gave some examples, and I think it's interesting, and my first question is to Steve and then Myron. To what extent does the success, the viability, the sustainability of your industry rely on genomics? How pervasive is it? If you did not, obviously it's in your seeds that you sell. Where would you be?
Well, we're in a very competitive industry, so if we didn't have genomics, we probably lose any competitive position we have relative to our competitors. So it's absolutely critical from a competitiveness standpoint to be able to turn the crank as fast as possible in the foundry. So I'll talk mainly about the seeds part of the business. Success there relies on a couple of things. So products we sell, the bag of seeds, it's base germplasm, which is kind of like a car. And then there's the trait, which is the GMO trait, and that's the passenger in the car. To actually run a successful seed business, that passenger has to change cars every year because you have better cars every year. And so plant breeding is all about making that car as fast as possible, as adaptable as possible. While the passenger, which is really the expensive part and the premium that the farmer pays for, that's sort of that has a longer life than the actual germplasm. So genomics, its place is really in driving that crank, getting the germplasm improvement cycle as fast as possible.
So Myron, as you know, we've got we're expecting the high quality salmon genome sequence, to be available and complete, now in June. We're announcing that at a meeting in Vancouver. What kind of impact can this have, and in reality, what kind of impact will it have on the aquaculture industry, given that it's so heavily based now in salmon?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question, and I can think of actually only a few examples in fisheries and aquaculture in BC where genomics have had a big impact. But I think when things like the salmon genome gets revealed, same thing, they've just sequenced the salmon louse, and we have a gene chip for mussels. And all these things, all these tools have been developed, but I haven't seen any real commercialization come out of them just yet. Okay. So I kind of see it as kind of an exciting time where I think for BC, I think these tools are going to be profoundly useful in solving problems, and that we're going to see those changes occur over the next few years. And one of the things that's a bit of a concern, though, is I do think at BC we've kind of lagged a little bit behind, because in places like Norway and Chile, which are our big competitors, they've used genetic tools a lot, especially for breeding and for the development of recombinant vaccines. So hopefully, these things, when they come online, they'll make a difference. Right? So, and the one example I'll use is, and it's not production related, but Helen Green-Smith at VIU has a gene chip for mussels. And right now, you've probably read in the newspapers that there's a real concern that ocean acidification is having a big issue on shellfish on the West Coast. We really need these tools to understand environmental stressors and what effect they do have on things like shellfish and fish. And so having things like, salmon or the mussel gene chip, I think, will be hugely valuable. But we won't see the results, I think, for another couple of years, so that we have something that's tangible.
Thank you. So keeping in along the lines of quality, so improving. So Steve mentioned this, changing people in the car. And Rickey, this was a theme, something that you emphasized, the value-added sort of aspects that genomics can contribute to. Can you speak to how, we understand genomics for breeding, and obviously this is core of what Steve does and some of what Myron's talking about. Can you talk to the value added? So where can we see in crops, or pick your example? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, I'll give you a statistic, Rachael, and I'm not exactly sure on the exact number, but out of Roth, as probably Steve knows, there's a lot of plant breeding that goes on. I heard that of the invention disclosures out of Roth, 90% come out of our plant agriculture department. So you can see the value of breeding and genomics within an agricultural college such as the Ontario Agricultural College. In talking to my colleagues over in plant agriculture, they still look at yield, but as I think Steve was mentioning too, they're looking for value-added traits. And the whole notion of can we get soybeans or canola with certain fatty acid profiles or resistance is where we're going with regards to that. We've seen it in the animal side, also at Guelph with the DHA enriched milk, DHA enriched eggs, which have all been genomics based. So there's a huge amount of genomics that value adds that the agricultural community.
To what extent do you think genomics can add to address the food wastage issue? So you talked about transport and that type of, keeping foods shelf stable longer, addressing the transport issue. Is this a hopeful, it would be nice, or is it a?
I think it'll be a reality, Rachel, because one of the challenges with extending shelf life is the lack of refrigeration of various commodities, especially horticultural commodities. And I know there's some programs right now that are looking at commodities that don't require refrigeration as part of the regime to extend shelf life. So you can see it moving towards that kind of aspect. Some of these drought-resistant, salt-resistant commodities also. So I deal with a number of food companies, and it's an interesting discussion that we're having, because they're saying, we're sourcing material now from lands that are high in salt, low in water, and they process differently. And so there's that whole innovation around how do we process those commodities from areas that traditionally we wouldn't have sourced commodity value.
Thanks. So I just have a couple more. One which I think it should be addressed is the accessibility. So even Steve, now perhaps representing the largest sort of industry up there, again, in aquaculture even in total, is the cost of using genomics and accessing the technology, given where they originated largely in the med or the health field. What can be done about that? Is there anything? And it's to everyone on the panel who can.
I would say the cost of accessing genomics is cheap and ever been by any COVID. So I think it's very positive, right? within now we have each crop as a business. So sure, the corn business can afford a lot of genomics. So can brachiaria business. Brachiaria is a forage grass with tiny little market share. A developed country research situation, genomics is very accessible. Where it's not so accessible is in the developing world. And it's not so much because of the dollar cost, but because of the infrastructure. A lot of the technology that's used is very sensitive and high technology, and needs a repair person very close by all the time. You know, our aluminum machines go down every week, but they're still great machines. But try putting one of those in Little Uganda, you won't get as much bang for your buck, because it's going to be down 90% of the time because they don't have repurpose. So I think those kinds of accessibility, when you start talking about field deployment of genomics technology, that's where we have a lot of opportunities to get better for accessibility. We don't use genomics technology out in the field. We have it all centralized. Samples come to us. I think that's the model almost every ingredient company uses, because accessibility and stability of the technology out in more diverse environments is not where it needs to be.
Myron, comment?
Yeah, it depends on how you define accessing the technology. So if you define assessing technology as you want to partner with some producers to do a research project to solve a problem, this remains a perennial problem for the aquaculture industry, because you look at the shellfish industry and it's such a small, extensive, we've got 500 sites and about 300 companies in BC that grow shellfish. They simply do not have the capital to contribute to projects. So even if it was 50 cent dollars, so we got a $100,000 project, but we need $50,000 from industry, you will not get that from the shellfish industry. They don't have the capital to do it. And it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. The big salmon farming companies, of which there's primarily 3 in the province, like Marine Harvest, they can't afford $50,000 because they're a big mature industry. So they'll cherry pick a project that is really of value to them. But the emerging industries, like maybe a sturgeon grower or a tilapia grower or a shellfish grower, they just haven't got there yet. So they don't have the disposable income to invest in projects that could help them out. So it's I don't know how you bridge that gap, because there's very few dollars available to growers that don't require, I would say, a significant amount of leveraging. Having said that, if you said access to technology, like, we're going to build a vaccine. Now, this vaccine is going to be a recombinant vaccine or DNA vaccine. Fish vaccine normally costs 15 cents a dose. This vaccine is going to cost you 40 cents a dose. Will you buy it? Now, if it's a real problem, history has shown that they will buy it. And as they start buying it, the price comes down. So now that vaccine is 25 cents a dose, and that's actually a real-world example. So I think that if you have something that gives an immediate benefit to the farmer, and they run the numbers, they will pay for it. If you want to get them to contribute to research, it's still going to remain a challenge trying to get that money, especially where you've got emerging industries, because they just haven't got that